there are many other ways that B2B is helping with Homeland Security as well. Some of you in the room that import and export a lot of goods might be familiar with something called the U.S. Importer Security Filing, or what's more commonly known as 10+2. This was some legislation that was enacted and is authorized by the Customs and Border Protection agencies here in the U.S. And it essentially says that there are 12 pieces of information that have to be sent to Customs before a ship can leave its originating port. Things like, what's the country of origin of the goods, where was the container stuffed, what are the contents of it, who is being delivered to when it gets to the U.S., what's the layout of where the containers are being placed in the ships. Now, why are we so concerned with this? Probably because there's fears that someone's going to smuggle in a dirty bomb or something else that could be potentially hazardous to the U.S. But there's also a concern that something could be done to just shut down the ports. You may not know it, but the ports on the western coast of the United States, in Washington, Oregon, and California, together the volume of trade they process in a year is larger than the gross domestic product of Mexico. And a couple years ago, when the longshoremen who operate the ports went on strike, it was costing the U.S. economy about $1 billion a year. So even the threat of something coming in a ports would cause mass panic and massive economic damage. Now, technologies like EDI and XML are also playing a role in keeping you safe when you go on airline travel. Most of you in the room probably flew here to the conference, and you probably had a nice encounter with the wonderful Transportation Security Administration we have here in the U.S. Maybe you had to take off your belt, maybe your shoes, maybe you got a nice pat down or got to stand in one of those machines where they photograph you half naked and look for weapons and things like that. But probably the most unobtrusive thing they did to protect you was about an hour before your flight took off, the airline sent an EDI message to the Department of Homeland Security with some very important information about the passenger manifest on the flight. Who's on the flight, what seat they're sitting in, what credit card they used to purchase the ticket, how long ago they purchased it, whether it was a return flight or a one-way only, the date of birth of the passenger, so that Homeland Security can run that against a no-fly list or a list of known suspects and make sure that they don't get on airplanes.